Hello, this is The Squad. This is the first of 3 episodes of The Squad where we look and see what players Liverpool have got at the moment, what we think they need to do over the summer, who might be likely to leave, and just assess where we think the strengths are and where we think Liverpool might be able to improve. We'll start with the defenders. We're putting this one out for free, so if you enjoy it, the next 2 will be on our app, so make sure you download the app and you'll be able to access those from there. But these, Neil, in front of you are all the defenders that are currently on the books, within reason. People who could be expected.
We're not got the under-11s.
Yeah, who could be expected to play some sort of first-team football this season. So I've put all the fullbacks at the top.
Okay, very organised.
So we've got Trent, we've got Costas there, we've got Neco Williams, who's back from loan, and we've got Andy Robertson, and then all the centre-halves are on the bottom. Obviously, Joe Gomez might end up being pulled around and doing a little bit of both. First of all, on the centre-halves, then there's quite a lot of them there, I would say. So we've got Nat Phillips here, who did well at Bournemouth. I don't think spectacularly. From when we spoke to, we speak to Bournemouth fans, doing the coach home and lower league show and stuff like that. And I think he was solid yet unspectacular. There is our friend Ben Davis here, and Nat Phillips, Reece Williams, who went out on loan and then basically wasn't getting his game and had a bit of a tough time and ended up coming back, but had a really nice time on the parade bus.
Which matters a great deal.
So would you be expecting any of these 3 to be starting the season with Liverpool?
I think there's a chance that pathway where Reece Williams does, because I think one of the problems you end up having is that for the sort of defender Liverpool might want Reece Williams to be, you've got to be really clear as to what club you do want him to go on loan and how they're going to use him. And I think that Liverpool may feel, if they've got a genuine sort of level of faith in Reece Williams, that they may well prepare to have him around.
Captain the under-23s.
Captain the under-23s, and maybe do the occasional bit here and there in the EFL Cup and be on the bench, in a 5-sub universe for League and Champions League games very occasionally, if there's a gap and if there's an injury to another centre-half, and then maybe there's a pathway to giving him 15 minutes if a game's going a certain way. So I feel as though there's a possibility for Reece. I feel as though Nat will now never be the centre-half that we need. I think the Bournemouth thing's really interesting because Bournemouth, ironically enough, in a sense, Bournemouth in the Championship, they're in the ascendancy. They're the better side most of the time they go on the pitch. They're going to come to the Premier League and it's the complete opposite. And depending on what Scott Parker wants to do, it may well be that effectively Nat's now a great fit.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. I mean, either way, he's going to have more defending to do.
He's going to have a lot more defending to do, and we know that he's really good at defending.
Yeah.
That is his bread and butter. It's what he's good at. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're almost happy enough that he's maybe had a couple of not sticky moments, but he's not quite been the player they'd have liked in the second half of the season. With an eye on, will he become the player we need next season? And he's got experience of doing this at a really high level.
Yeah, and if we end up dropping a bit deeper because we're under pressure, well, that suits him.
Suits down to the ground. I think Ben Davies, sadly, the only way in which I can see any sort of route for Ben is if the idea he can do bits at left back is brought to fruition, but. I just don't quite see how it happens. And I think it's, in one sense, I think it's a bit of a shame because I'd always like someone to get to play for Liverpool if we bought them, But I think ultimately, with Ben, I think it's almost certain that he'll move himself along this summer. I suspect it will be on something permanent, just to be fair to him. I think he needs to go and work out what his life is next and where his career is next. So, it's obviously not quite worked out. There's a chance we could be surprised because it is Jurgen Klopp and he loves all of this sort of thing. But I just think that we'd have seen more Ben Davies, like some Ben Davies, if not more, by now. If that was feeling as though it was a likely thing to happen. So I think that I'd be amazed if any of the other 3 centre-halves, Matip, Van Dijk and Konate, go anywhere. Reece Williams, I can see them thinking of him as maybe number 5, possibly in all circumstances. And then the only question mark really there is Joe Gomez.
Okay, we'll move Davis over here then. I will leave Gomez here for now. I think he'll do one more season at least, and then so I'm going to leave him there for now. There's also his future sort of strangely tied up with this fellow as well, in that Neco Williams, we talk about loans not working out. His couldn't have gone any better. I mean, he scored a 35-yard screamers, for heaven's sake. Obviously, Fulham win the league. He's absolutely brilliant for them. And you sense that the decision's sort of on him now. Obviously, Liverpool will want a decent fee for him if he does goes, so it's a little bit on Liverpool. Talk of 15 million being banded around by James Pearce is what they'd expect for Neco and for Nat Phillips, but it sort of feels like, he went out to get confidence and to play, and he's done both, and so in theory he should it should be like, great, let's come back and be back up right back here, but it's whether that's what he wants.
There's other factors in this though as well, which is ultimately there's a playoff final for Wales coming up for World Cup football, and I think he'll want to be playing if Wales qualify for the World Cup, I think he'll want to be playing World Cup football.
Yeah.
And that to me is a really, a key part of all of this, and I think it's a perfectly legitimate ambition, by the way. So I'm expecting, they're important. So Ukraine plays Scotland, and then the winner of that plays Wales. And then from there, I think that's going to tell us an awful lot for Neco. I think in general, the issue he has is that for all of his obvious talent and excellence, he is not Trent Alexander-Arnold, and he is, as a footballer, quite a significant departure from Trent Alexander-Arnold. I'll be honest, I think he goes.
Okay.
And I think he goes, and I think he goes with everyone's best wishes. I think they may well bring in a lad that's been much linked from Aberdeen off the basis of the fact that you've got a couple of options there. You get to get him on a development curve. You get to think about him for a period of time. You're almost 18 months away from him having to make a Neco Williams-based decision, or you having to make it with him again. So you can go on that journey, and you've got Joe Gomez.
Yeah.
And I think that both of those, all of that sort of filters in together to being able to go, okay, we can allow this lad to not hit the ground running if that happens. But if he does actually hit the ground running, and there's opportunity to get him some pitch time, then the sort of opportunity we're giving him is much better for his development than the sort of opportunity Neco would get if he managed to hit the ground running as well, if you know what I mean. So I just think you end up having to do the right thing by the footballer as long as Liverpool can get the money in. And I think that's the key question is will there be an offer made for Neco? And I think this might be one that goes quite deep, quite close to the wire, I think, on Neco Williams, because I think there'll be a bit of a game of chicken on it for Neco himself, for Liverpool, and for any buying club, who I think will be Fulham, but I think it'll go all the way.
Yeah, I think for Fulham, £50 million is quite a lot of money, and you might think, well, I can understand why Liverpool are wanting to charge that, if that's the right word to use for a human being. But I think, they will think, well, yeah, but we've got four or five other things that we'd like to do and that we need to do, and so they might be looking at, well, can we make any money for someone who's a good championship player but isn't necessarily what we want at the moment. So I agree, I don't think it'll be done anytime soon, but I also agree with you that he's more likely to leave than not, so which is why I put him over here. I think a thing as well, Neil, is I think we'll be conscious of his value at the moment, and we've had players, his compatriot, Harry Wilson's one springs to mind, who at various points, we've brought back with the idea of, well, we couldn't get necessarily what we want for him, and then he's actually sort of gone down in value because he's been doing nothing at Liverpool, or he's gone to another loan that hasn't gone quite as well, and they might think, A, there's a lot to do this summer and the money would be nice, but also B, that actually if we bring him back and he just sits on our bench and we try and sell him in January, we're not going to get as much for them. And
that's a really smart point, and I think that may well be a decision that they make, and they come to a conclusion that they come to. I think a lot of this is all, is all tied up on wants and needs elsewhere. I don't see, a situation where I find it really difficult. So before the start of the next season, they'll play 16 league games, 6 Champions League group games, and 1 EFL Cup game. We'll ignore the Charity Shield because no one even knows when it's getting played yet. So if they're not taking it seriously, why should we? That's 23 games. You really struggle to see, even if it all goes to plan, even if he does really well, I really struggle to see how Neco Williams gets 6 games. So I think that Neco himself will probably be thinking, and he's not stupid, he'll probably, if I can come back to that conclusion, he can come to that conclusion, his representatives can come to that conclusion. So I think that that's all smart. It then just does become, where does that sort of fullback rank on which club's priority? Because one of his minor issues is, for instance, I think he did brilliantly at Leicester. I think he looked great at Leicester, a side who, when they play at home, can expect to be the better side 12 to 15 times a season. Yeah. And a side that, when they play away from home, can expect to be the better side 6 to 10 times a season. That's the sort. I think Neco Williams would be a brilliant right back for a team like that, but he feels like a bit more of a gamble for a Leicester than he does for a Fulham. Fulham, it's the flip side. If they're the better sides at home 6 to 10 times a season this year, they're doing really well, and that's when Neco will be in his element. Yeah. I mean, it's a really difficult balance, all of this, for working out precisely what's what there. Yeah. Leicester at 15 million, Neco Williams, they're supposed to be saying, how much for the Liverpool reserve? Fulham would be going, he's great, we love him, but then he might not be quite as useful, because the fact of the matter is that when we go away from home, and even over half the games we play at home, we know we're going to be very much on the back foot. So it's all a really difficult little balance act for all these teams. Yeah. Okay. Let's do get them on then. So we'll go with what sort of ended the season being our first choice. So we've got Virgil here, and then we've got Ibu here. So the reason I've sort of done this really is that
I think that sort of ends up being our first choice back four and our first choice centre-half partnership sort of by the end, and you imagine all being well, we'd sort of start with that as well. Joel Matip, I think, will back himself to get games.
Yeah.
But it's sort of where it leaves this fella really, and how he's looking at that, thinking, well, actually, you know, I'm not the young guy anymore. Konate's come in and look fantastic. You know, the manager obviously sort of loves him. He has a brilliant game in the Champions League final, and he's there really. So do you think Joe Gomez is looking at that with Joel Matip, you know, first reserve if you like, if he's fit, and no right back for the next season, and thinking I'm getting enough games there or enough games that I'm enjoying?
Yes, but I think there's a key element here, which is that I think he'll play a few more where Van Dijk plays. I think the idea of, we saw it in the first half of the season anyway, Van Dijk does get rested a little bit, and in the second half of the season when it's, you know, pedal to the metal, there's trophies to be won, Van Dijk plays quite relentlessly. But I'll say it again, you know, from the 6th of August until they go away for the World Cup, 13th of November, it's 22 Premier League and Champions League games. So forget the AFL Cup, that's 22 games Liverpool need to get a result from.
That's it all up.
So I think that Joe is the one who's best placed to back up Virgil. And we'll get opportunities backing up Virgil and get games there. I think he can get games at the right-hand side at centre-half. Yeah, and I think you get games at the right-hand side at centre-half as well. I think that the Matip's contract is up in a couple of years. I think there does need to be a bit of contingency plan. I think Joe's got to have a good pre-season, don't get me wrong. But I don't think the idea of there's now a set pecking order at centre-half other than Van Dijk is absolutely nailed on. I think we've seen that in the past. Players have made a bit of a run for it, and I think that'd be something that the manager's saying. The other one who I think is really interesting is Tsimikas. In that, I think that the club really like him. I think that there's a genuine affection for him, and he's part of the gang, and that matters. That's an important part.
He's got mates.
He's got mates, but I think that there's a chance, because there's actually a bit of a surfeit of quality left backs around, that Liverpool might end up being really strongly tempted by an offer from quite a big from a Champions League European club, a quite significant one for Tsimikas. You know, the example I keep using, not that I've heard it based on anything, but it wouldn't surprise me if, for instance, Juventus said we'll give you 25 million for him. And then Liverpool have got a really big decision to make, because they paid 11 for him in the first place. Tsimikas himself might have a bit of a big decision to make. They're prepared to make me first choice, which I know I'm not going to be here. I can play a good role. I'll have opportunities, and that's where I think that things could get a bit interesting from a Liverpool point of view. More than anyone else, I think they're committed to Gomez, and I think they might try and get him on a new deal. I don't even think it'll be a one-year thing. I think that everyone knows, and I think Virgil himself also knows that, you know, he did the thing for the Alder Hay video, and it was the 3 of them, and Virgil sat in the middle, and he went, but these two are the future.
Yeah.
And Virgil knows that already, I think, and I think there'll be a little bit of, you know, that's not to say that Virgil will not start both this season and the following season to come as first choice, but I think there'll be a little bit more Gomez getting opportunities at centre-half. And genuinely, if you said to me right now, first game, 6th of August, Liverpool at home to Brighton, Joe Gomez starts next to Virgil van Dijk, I wouldn't go, that's mad.
No, that's a fair point. Okay. 2 last questions. Does this feel like enough to you going in with this into next season? I'll put Trent back there.
Yeah, I think so. I think it could be enough, but I think they might want to do the young right back. So I think if they do a young right back to sort of to replace Williams if he goes, create that little sort of curve, then that wouldn't surprise me, and then I think that would be enough. Yeah, I think you're in a situation there where you've got the 4 quality central defenders. You can't carry 5. No. We're talking here about being worried about Joe Gomez. You can't carry 5. I think if you've got Tsimikas to back up Robertson, you can't ask for much more than that in real terms. And then the next thing then becomes, if you had a young right back who will expect to get some opportunity, and then if he grabs it, great. If he doesn't, fine, because you've got Gomez, then I think you've got enough.
I'll stick Gomez on that right-hand side for now, bring Verge back in. Very last question on the defenders. Have you got any temptation to do some of this?
No, none at this point. I think the key question on that is literally, you know, where do you see Trent Alexander-Arnold being the most useful he can be elsewhere on the pitch? And like, he already does loads of stuff at number 8, so that's the one I'm not that...
He's been popping up there quite a lot this season.
That's the one I'm not that interested in a really weird way. that one we're already beginning to pull off. I wouldn't be averse to the idea of at some point having a look at him at 6. A different type of 6, but he's becoming physically more and more imposing. So sort of a bit of a hybrid between, say, Thiago and Fabinho. That's also the pathway that Kimmich went on. If you want to get me really... And Lahm. If you want to get me really excited, I wouldn't be very seeing what that looked like. a little bit here and there. I don't see it happening. This is just the ramblings of a slightly deranged man. But the idea of a little bit of left-hand sided forward Trent, where he was able to come in on his right foot, create a bit of space for himself, see what he could pick out, see if he could bend one. He scores that great goal. I think it was against Aston Villa, was it, where he's on that side and he drills it from there.
Yeah. I've seen him score 2. I think it was 2. Might have even been 3 against Manchester United under-18s playing forward. I can't remember which side it was, but he was in a front 3 and he tore them apart.
So that's the one I've got my eye on. To be honest with you, that's the one that if you want to be really, really excitable, want to be really, really frisky, then that's my frisky one. This, not bothered. Doing it anyway. What's the point?
Fair, okay. That's been the defenders. Frisky as you want to be. We've got the midfielders and the forwards on our app over the next few days, so make sure you download the Anfield Wrap app, get stuck into them, up the Reds.